Hi, in this segment, we're going to be learning how to do a beard fade. So there's going to be all different types of beard fades on salvo right here. You know, starting just like the low fade, if we're considering fading the top on the sides. A low fade would usually start just under the ear. So using the ear as a guideline, there's going to be three parts of it. From the top of the ear, you have the high blend, the medium, you have the medium blend, and then at the bottom, you have the low blend. So with salvo, we're actually going to be doing a lower blend. So we'll start the guideline right at the bottom of the ear. So we're actually going to start with a 0, lever closed, right at the bottom of the ear. I'm just going to shave it all the way up. And we'll worry about the fade at the end. I want to focus on more on the beard. So as you can see here, as I'm shaving the beard, I'm lining it up to the bottom of the ear, and that'll be my first guideline. So I'm actually using the mirror as my guideline, and I'm just following. So the mirror is your best friend. Same thing on this side. So now to make it easier, I'm just going to bald out this area here. So I don't have to do that at the end. This will be easier for you as you're cutting hair to skip steps, just shaving it to 0. So number 1, I'll use a trimmer and then I'll use a balder in between. So here we have my trimmer, and I'm just going to go in between. I'm doing it on the other side now. So now I'll be using the UV foil shaver. Let me turn them over. I really try to work on the center of the ear. So I kind of imagine this circle. This is like the core. So I'm really just focusing on right in the middle. I'm using a little bit of flicking method, so I don't create such a harsh line. So I'm just flicking down and I'm flicking up. I'm doing it on this side now. Think about a circle right here, focusing on the core, right in the dead center of the ear. Just flicking up and tapping down. That helps you not create such a harsh line. Sometimes with the foil shavers and the trimmers, as you're using it, could create a very tough line to get out. So you want to make it as easy as possible for you to knock out once you start fading. And then salvo usually gets it from a 0 to a 0.5 to about a 1, and a little bit more fuller on the bottom to kind of create that darker, from light to dark contrast. So here I have a 1. I'm going to keep it open, which makes a 1.5. And I'm just going to go down against the grain. So imagining this half circle right here. You can see the contrast of the hair. It's a little bit more lighter. You can see the spots here. Sometimes you got to be careful on bringing it too low. So I actually want to bring it to a 1.5. I'm just going to go against the grain just to soften that area up. So as you can see, it's just taking a little bit off. It's not doing too much. I'm just going to fine tune this area and soften it up. I think this is about 2 weeks growth. And once I smooth that out, I'm actually just going to close the lever. Now it's closed, so it's actually at a 1. I'm just going to work my way up and keep it just above and just below my first guideline. Now where you did the 1.5 in the beginning, you got to know that was the boundary. I actually stopped around here. Now where I'm doing the 1 is just in between that. Now on this side, remember to go against the grain. Everyone has different beard shapes, sizes, so you know, with Salvo, I'm lucky enough I can use a full blade. He's got a pretty full beard. You know, if you have a tighter area where you're fading, using the corners would help as well. Now the next part would be taking the guard off, keeping it open. So now this is a 0.5, no guard. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work my way where I did the 1 guard on and just use it, start cornering to get all the dark spots. So it won't take the line out completely, but it will soften up the line. So I'm really just picking at those dark spots. So as you can see throughout my process, the fades is going to start popping out more and more. And you're going to see a little bit of a contrast. And the lines will start disappearing. You really got to trust the process and create a system for yourself like this to knock down. Now on this side, same thing. I'm just using the corners of the machine. And I'm really working on getting those dark spots. So you can watch me how I'm doing it. I'm actually using a little bit of a flicking method where I'm using the corners and I'm putting a little bit more pressure and then I'm kind of flicking up. You got to really remember the levels because it could be hard to remember throughout the process where as you start fading, you know, you won't see the guidelines anymore. They start disappearing. Okay. So now the next step is knocking out that first line that we created with the 0. So it was actually closed in the beginning. Now we're going to close it back to 0 and we're really just going to fine tune the line that we created in the beginning, and obviously the 0 will knock out the 0 on its own if you go over it. Now this is where the technique comes more in play, where angles and just fairly touching the line will make it disappear. So sometimes I'll go back with a 0, I'll go 0.25 and I'll work my way a little bit lower. And then reopen the guard to a 0.5 and I can go just a tiny bit lower. So my motion and method is going back from a 0, closed, knocking out the line, to 0.25, a little bit lower, and then open 0.5 and go a tad bit lower again. And start working on those dark spots. I think of this clipper as like a magic eraser. The corner of the eraser is pretty much going to give you more of a finer detail and erase those dark spots. So you got to utilize the clipper to the best of your abilities and you should be able to see it just disappear. I'm going to do it on this side. So you're going to have all types of beards. You're going to have dense beards, finer beards, medium beard, coarse. You know, you got all different textures. With Salvo, lucky enough, you don't have to go too many times. He's got pretty much between a medium and a coarse beard where it really fades really easily. Some guys you may have to go over it a little bit more than others and spend more time, but you know, that comes with patience and practice and repetition. Not everyone's gonna have the same beard, so this right here, between medium and coarse texture, I find that it blends really nicely. You don't have to put too much work and effort in. So now all I'm doing back 0, 0.25, and now to a 0.5 open, no guard, just trying to get in between those dark spots. And when I'm done that, I like to take a step back just to look at it from a distance, and then looking at what I need to fix and what's sticking out. So when I'm looking at the beard, I could always work backwards and put back to 1, and then work a little bit lower. It is about repetition, but making sure that every rep, there's a purpose behind it. So you're actually doing something. I find a lot of barbers are going over the same thing without anything changing. That just means you're not going against the grain, and you might be wasting your time thinking that you're actually cutting the hair, but you're not. So I base everything off seeing it, you know, seeing what I need to get rid of, you know, feeling it when the clipper is actually touching, and then seeing it disappear, and then hearing it too, cut. So you gotta like really use your senses. It makes a big difference while cutting hair. And you kind of build that natural instinct as you get more experienced. Now I find that once I get to the line up part, once you line up the beard, it's really going to expose certain areas that you haven't, you know, if there's dark lines in the beard, if there's certain things still sticking out, then you could go back in and touch it up, right? It doesn't hurt to always fine tune and finish up the beard in the end. You should always re-look at your client's beard and do your best to kind of just make it the best looking beard, because every client, every person matters in the chair. That's what we do for a living. We create the best possible service, and we make people look good and feel good by providing the best service. So when you really care about somebody in the chair, you know, the product will speak for itself. You're actually going to see the quality into the haircut. So be patient, take your time. Here I'm just going to touch up and just give him a little bit of a taper before I start lining up the beard. I'm now going to sharpen up the beard lineup. And now with the beard lineup, this is really going to showcase and see if the fade pops out or not. Once I line it up, right, it's really going to showcase the beard and the fade. So what I mean by that is, you know, all the little things that you may see right now where it does look faded, it will get exposed. So I'm just going to line up the beard naturally from the top and then from the sides, just barely touching. All right. I'm gonna do that on the other side, and then I'll work on the bottom of the beard. So I'm gonna turn them over. Okay. I was just touching the beard. And the back over here. Looking directly on. Whatever you see that's sticking out, you could just touch up above the lips. Think about a house. I always look at the lips and the mustache like a triangle shape. So it's more of an angle, following the lips from the top. You're just curving it and then using the tip, the left corner of the liner, just touching. I'm going to switch to go on the other side. And it's really topping. You really want to get that top. And just really keep it natural. You never want to push up the beard line or the mustache line, because the grow out phase will just be horrendous for the client. Now working outside the mustache, coming from a side angle, and then working on the top. Think about a triangle again. You're in a diagonal. Keep it very natural. So I'm just touching. So I'm pushing down and I'm pulling up a little bit. Same thing on this side. Sometimes I'll use my finger as a pivot. So I'll keep my pinky on his forehead so I have more control. I'm just pushing down a bit and pulling up. And then coming from the side. All right, now getting under the beard, come straight on. I'm going to ask him to look up for me. It's right in the middle. I'm just going to get under and just touch up under the beard. He looks like he has a pretty straight already. You can usually tell from the from the last haircuts or beard lineups, just follow the same outline from the last time. Generally, that will tell the story, and that's usually where people want it. But of course, if you see there's something off or imbalance, don't be afraid to tell the client that you could like straighten it out or sharpen out, or like, do something to actually make it look better. So I'm just going to use a trimmer now just to hover over to get the straggles. We do understand that he does like to keep it fuller in the center part where his goatee is. So I actually don't want to touch that too much, but I'm actually going to come at an angle for wherever I see straggles sticking out on the sides. I'm going to use my trimmer and just go with the flow of his beard and hover over. Okay, and then same thing on this side. I see a little straggles sticking out, so I'll just smooth that out. You really want to keep your hand steady. Now my pivot, if you notice, my hand's actually on his shoulder, and I'm touching it because it's giving me a nice balance, so keeps my hand steady. If you go like this, it's okay sometimes if you have a steady hand and you can control it. But it does get shaky if you're just, you don't have any pivot. So there we go, just following the shape. You may think that doesn't do much, but you could see the difference. Like now I don't see any hair sticking out on both sides. Then I just double take it, and then I just hover down. That will save you some time. Some barbers like to use scissors while doing it. Some more comfortable with clippers. So now that I did the lineup, I can just fine tune the fade. So when I'm looking at the beard fade, I'm looking at certain things like, do I see lines can I improve it? What can I do in order to fix the beard blend, right? So I find that, you know, going backwards and seeing what you did in the beginning after the lineup would really expose. So I can still see, I can still touch up certain areas to fine tune it and make it pop out more. So I'm gonna go back with the 0.5 open and just go over certain dark spots. Even with the clipper here, if I see from this angle some of the hairs are sticking out, I'll just hover over. Brushing is important because it lets the hair sit. At the same time, it cleans the hair that you cut. Sometimes the little beard hair could fall into the beard, which you may think that, hey, you know what? I thought I cut that, but that's just the hair you cut that kind of falls into the beard. So just make sure you're always cleaning and brushing the beard as you're fading. Those are some tips and tricks that will help you. All right, so that's looking good to me, and then I just check it in the mirror. You got to remember too, when you're looking at the beard, you're not looking up close, right? No one's going to be up to Salvo's face and be looking at every single detail. So what I like to do is I like to take a step back and I look at the full haircut and beard. Does it match? Does it mix? Does it look good? You know, you got to go where, you know, people actually stand. You don't have to think about sometimes getting into tunnel vision you're directly on will be completely different than when you take a step back. I think being up close and personal, obviously with certain details you can, and that would help, but let your eyes readjust and take a step back and look at your work from a distance. Some people get caught up and then they overdo the beard, or they're working on too much that it actually looks worse at the end. So you don't have to overdo it. If there's nothing to be cut, don't cut. But if you see certain, like, you know, lines or anything in the beard, you can just touch and go over it. You got to think of it as your art. So, you know, this is your masterpiece. How are you going to create it? Are you gonna leave it just like that, or can you make it better? You always have to ask yourself, can I improve it? What do I need to work on to make this look better? So I'm going to use this foil shaver now, the UV foil shaver. I'm going to get under all the stubble. And then I'm going to use a straight razor right after to sharpen up the beard. Just keep your head up for me, please. Yeah, thank you. Another trick what I like to do is actually use the foil shaver and just hover over. And this actually catches all the little straggles. This is also a great technique for some of the hairs that you miss. You're not putting any pressure, you're just hovering over top, and whatever straggles that the foil shaver catches, you could actually hear it. Same thing on this side. You also got to remember, one beard on one side may be different than the other side. They're not always going to be identical. Sort of like twins. If you have twins, right, or you know twins, there's going to be something, one thing is going to be different than the other. They're not always completely alike. So you just got to readjust, and you do your best to match. So one side sometimes you might need to like touch up a little more, or maybe push down a little bit so it matches one side. What I usually do is I try to pick the best side and try to replicate that. So now I'll be using the straight razor. All right, so before I do my straight razor, I'm just gonna put some shaving gel here. Make it easier for me to shave. So I got the straight razor, it's locked and loaded. I'm gonna work on the corners first. I really like that C cup on the sides. Remember, pulling the skin nice and tight. So let the blade do the work. I'm gonna work my way up. Right? So now you can really see that pop. looking clean. Same thing with the mustache. I'm actually pulling the opposite way wherever I shave. A little there, and then just above the lip, on top of the mustache, just really cleaning up the stubble. And last shaving machine I'll be using is a UV foil shaver. I'm just gonna clean up everything under after I brought it to stubble. And then same thing from the center of the beard. I'll be using the foil shaver to kind of follow the flow of the beard, and it'll catch all the little straggles that I missed. All right. So the final thing, I'm just gonna spray them down with aftershave. Close your eyes. Always want to block the eyes. Come around. Wherever you straight lasered or use a zero machine. So here we have it, a bald fade, faded in beard, all the way to the bottom, contrasting to the side and keeping it very squared in the center.